So, can you name any few non-ferrous material which you extensively used in engineering application? Can you name any non-ferrous material which is extensively used
Copper
in
and aluminum, sir.
copper and aluminum? Yes, you are right. So, compared to copper, aluminum has lot of application in daily usage and also engineering application. So though the content is written as non-ferrous foundry practice, the study is only restricted to aluminum casting here in this subject. Okay, other material you will going to discuss in MS, like other material like plastic, polymer, ceramic, that we are going to that you are discussed in material science. So here non-ferrous boundary practice typically specifically restricted for aluminum casting. So what is mean by non-ferrous? What is the difference between ferrous and non-ferrous material? Can anyone tell me?
Non-ferrous in the sense they don't have iron in their components. Like the major component is not iron.
Very good, very good. So ferrous material will be having a cheap constituent element as iron, whereas in non-ferrous element there is no iron. Even if it is present, if we use as a allying element only in small percentage. The major constituent is not a iron. So that is non-ferrous element. What is the difference between ferrous and non-ferrous material in terms of properties?
Ferromagnetism, sir.
Okay. Ferrous material are magnetic in nature, then it will attract to magnet. Then in with respect to strength, which one is having more strength?
Iron.
Ferrous material is having more strength or non-ferrous material? Which material having exhibit more strength?
Ferrous, sir.
Ferrous material will have more strength, okay, and durability also when you are in using. And ferrous material tend to corrode, so that you have to do painting or other coating so that you can avoid the corrosion. What about density? Is density of the ferrous material is high or non-ferrous material is high?
Non-ferrous, sir.
Non-ferrous material density is high. Weight density. I am asking about weight. Which material has more weight, ferrous or non-ferrous?
Ferrous, sir. Ferrous
Ferrous,
material.
sir. Ferrous.
Material is
Yes, sir.
weight is more. So non-ferrous material is lightweight. Okay, that's why. So non-ferrous material like aluminum is extensively used in aero space vehicle, space vehicle. So we use the steel as a supporting material in building a space vehicle. So the body is made up of uh, aluminum only. Like how we are constructing the buildings, we use steel as a supporting material and it is packed with cement. So like that in an aerodynamic or air space vehicle, in order to reduce the weight of the vehicle, if weight is more, then lifting of the vehicle will become difficult and more fuel consumption will take place. In order to reduce the weight, and also it has to be have stability to the vehicle. So for that we will be using ferrous material like steel as a structural material. For supporting we use steel, but body is made up of aluminum. Okay, so the major difference will be the strength of the ferrous material is high and durability is also high, whereas strength of non-ferrous material is less and durability is also less. And non-ferrous material has less weight, light weight in nature, and non-ferrous material is having corrosion resistance. Okay, the advantages of aluminum casting as we are discussing till now, aluminum exists high strength to weight ratio. When you compare strength to weight ratio, it is very much important property when you are using a material in space vehicle. Okay, or in any vehicle. Suppose even if you take a normal road vehicle also, truck or buses, the bus body is made up of aluminum material only. Aluminum frames will be used. even in construction, packing, we use aluminum. Okay, because of its high strength to weight ratio. Even for less weight, it will give good strength. But pure aluminum has some disadvantages. That's why instead of using pure aluminum, we use aluminum alloys rather than pure aluminum. Okay. So one of the prime advantages of aluminum casting is it exhibit high strength to weight ratio. That is what required for moving vehicle, especially in space vehicle or aeroplanes. Okay, aluminum casting alloy display excellent fluidity characteristics. Okay, aluminum display excellent fluidity characteristics for casting thin section and fine details. As we are mentioning, we discussed about pressure die casting for filling the thin section. Okay, so in normal casting, as we discuss, uh, incomplete casting due to uh, sudden or premature solidification without before filling the thin section. That is one of the problem. But aluminum has a good, excellent fluidity characteristic, so the thin section also get filled easily. Aluminum casting alloy melts at relatively low temperature. When you are comparing with non-ferrous material, energy required for melting aluminum is less because its melting point is only 660 degree. When it compares to steel material, its melting point is 1350 degree. So less energy required for melting aluminum, thereby reducing the problem related to melting, pouring, and essential furnace requirement. Okay, so the furnace cost can be minimized because it has less melting point. Aluminum casting can be produced almost by every known process, thereby offering a broad range of volume, productivity, quantity, mechanization, and specialized capability. Okay, so shaping of aluminum is very easy because it has very good ductile in nature. Okay, it is ductile in nature, so you can easily shape into any shape required. Okay, so so that is one of the advantages: volume, productivity, quantity, mechanization, and specialized capability can be achieved in aluminum casting. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So next, some of the other advantages is metallurgically or mechanically bonded bimetal parts can be routinely cast. Okay, so we can cast the alloy. Okay, so the other material alloying element added to the aluminum can be easily cast. Aluminum casting require low capital requirement. So it required low capital requirement. That means investment is less compared to ferrous material. Owing to its high strength to weight ratio and corrosion resistance, aluminum casting are preferred in aerospace and automotive industry. As I am mentioning earlier, so owing to its high strength to weight ratio, because exhibit high strength for less weight only, and it is also corrosion resistance. Aluminum castings are prepared for aerospace and automobile industry. Further, due to its non-toxicity, okay, aluminum castings are used for cooking utensils, food handling, and medical equipment. Okay, these are the advantages of aluminum casting. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear? Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. So next, we'll move on to the limitation of aluminum casting. So one of the limitation is, so because its property is less, the mechanical strength will be less, and it required metal mold for casting aluminum. Most of the time use metal mold. So preparing a metal mold is for complex shape is expensive. The initial requirement is expensive, and compared to ferrous based casting. So for mass production, it will going to help you. Okay. So aluminum casting exhibit the poor resistance for abrasion and wear. So because it is a soft material having low strength, hardness is also less. For that reason, aluminum wear rate in aluminum is more compared to ferrous material. So you have to add a alloying element to increase the wear resistance so that you can achieve good wear resistance. Okay, aluminum casting exhibit poor resistance to abrasion and wear. Okay, so when you have less strength, obviously the hardness will be reduced. Okay, non-ferrous material is having more hardness and more wear resistance compared to ferrous material is having more hardness and more strength, and also wear resistance compared to non-ferrous material. Non-ferrous material is soft in nature; it is ductile material, so chances of wear will be more. Okay, you have to add alloying element so that you can achieve better wear resistance. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So then variation in alloying element exhibit outstanding castability and wear resistance. However, prone for gas porosity. Okay, adding alloying element may resulting in the gas formation and so gas will be dissolved in molten aluminum. Especially hydrogen gas is the only gas that is soluble in molten aluminum. So if any such problem arises, you have to degasify that by using flushing principle. Okay, optimum property can be achieved with proper inclusion of alloying element. Okay, you need to add alloys in order to get a specific property in aluminum casting. This is about advantages and disadvantages of aluminum casting. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Next, we will move on to melting of aluminum alloy. So, as we are discussed in general, we discuss about melting furnace in second chapter. So here, specifically, which is the furnace used for melting aluminum alloy? So, can you name the furnace used for melting non-ferrous alloy? As we discussed in your previous model, second module, resistance furnace will be used.
Resistance.
Resistance furnace or gas fired furnace is used. Here, lift out crucible is one of the furnace used for melting aluminum. Lift out crucible is nothing but you use medium size or small size crucible. In that, aluminum ingot will be placed. You can lift this crucible with the help of tongs. We can lift it, and you can with the help of this crucible. It's a here is a spot for pouring a molten aluminum into the mold or into the metal die. You can lift this and you can pour into the metal die directly. No additional ladle is required in aluminum casting. So that's why you can lift it and place it with the help of tongs. That's why it is referred as lift out crucible. So the source of energy may be different. Either you can use resistance furnace or you can use fuel furnace. So it is up to you. Okay. If they ask lift out crucible, you may also write the diagram of resistance furnace or this gas fuel fire furnace. Okay. So take down this diagram. Lift out crucible. It is one of the important question. Take down this diagram. Take this diagram. You have a outer shell, steel shell. Inside refractory lining will be there. Bottom refractory support. So then you'll be having lift out crucible. It is small in size usually, and at the side you will be having passage to supply of gas. Okay, and the gas will be burned inside, and you will be having a refractory cover with vent hole, so that byproduct of the combustion can be escape out of this hole. Once the metal will be melt, you can lift with the help of tongs, and you can directly pour into the mold cavity.
Done, sir.
Done? Is
Yes,
everyone
sir.
completed? Is everyone completed?
Doing,
Or
sir.
okay, take it, take it.
Done, sir.
Okay. Here, crucible furnace is oldest and simplest type of furnace used for melting aluminum alloy and other non-ferrous alloy in small volumes. As I told you, the crucible size is small so that you can lift the crucible, and it can be used as ladle as well. Okay, no need to pour into separate ladle. The melted metal can be taken in crucible itself, and you can pour into the mold. Crucible made up of refractory material, usually a clay graphite mixture of high temperature steel alloy. Crucible act like a ladle. The charge placed inside the crucible is heated through the walls of the crucible by means of heat source like oil, gas, or electricity. The source may be different. Okay, electricity is nothing but here no need to go for induction or arc furnace. It is the construction will be more cost will be more. You can use electric arc for sorry resistance furnace is sufficient for melting aluminum. After the molten metal has reached the desired state, using tongs, the molten metal is taken by lifting the crucible, and it is poured directly into the mold. Okay, this is how we can the melting of aluminum is done with the help of lift out crucible. So the source of energy may be oil or gas or even electricity. The furnace type can be changed, but it is usually melt in small volume. The next one, you take hardener used in aluminum casting. Take down this heading, hardener used in aluminum casting. Hardener used in aluminum casting. Okay, what is mean by hardener? Can anyone tell me what is mean by hardener? As we discussed the limitation of aluminum casting or aluminum alloy, the softness of the aluminum is a disadvantage. Hardness of the aluminum is less. Okay, that will leads to the abrasion wear, rate of wear will be more. It will be having less wear resistance. In order to overcome that disadvantages of aluminum alloy, what we are doing is we are adding hardener. Hardener is nothing but the element which is added in order to increase the hardness of the aluminum alloy or aluminum casting. Okay, so the mechanical and physical property of aluminum casting are enhanced with the adding of alloying element. So hardener is one of the element, okay, that is added to specifically increasing the hardness of a aluminum casting. Thereby you can increase wear resistance. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So as we know, the aluminum has low melting material. Its melting point is usually 660 degrees Celsius. Alloying element don't mix readily with the low melting point aluminum, and hence we use hardener or master alloy. So for example, in order to increase the hardness, so because of its softness only, you will be having less hardness. Aluminum casting is having low melting point. It is soft in nature. Ductility is more, and hardness will be less. If you want to increasing the hardness of a aluminum casting, we have to add some alloying element which is having high melting point. Okay, that will gives you the good hardness property will increase. Suppose if you take a alloying element, it is having high melting point. So if you take it and add it to the aluminum molten metal, it is having low melting point. So the alloying element made melting point of more than 1000 degrees Celsius. So if you add the alloying element to 660 degrees Celsius, what happens? That alloying element will not fuse it in aluminum matrix. It acts as a separate unit. So it will form a composite rather than alloy. So in order to avoid that, what we do, we have a technique to add the high temperature alloying element to low temperature melting point aluminum. That is by preparing a master alloy. Okay, I will explain how to prepare a master alloy. So here the some of the hardeners are available as calcium may be used, cobalt, copper, chromium, manganese, magnesium, nickel, silicon, titanium, vanadium, zirconium, vanadium, and more. These are some of the alloy can be used in order to increase the property of aluminum casting. Especially in order to increase the hardness, chromium will be used as a alloying element. This chromium is used as a alloying element. Okay, so chromium will enhance the hardness and wear resistance of the aluminum casting. So the chromium melting point is 1875 degrees Celsius. When you add solid chromium pieces as powder into 660 degrees Celsius, this chromium, its melting point is 1875. It will not melt and fuse it with the aluminum metal. What you have to do, we have to create a master alloy. How we will create the master alloy? Here you see, for example, chromium has melting point of about 1875 degrees Celsius. It is used as a hardener with aluminum melt in order to impart strength, hardness, and oxidation resistance. The aluminum chromium alloy combination is called master alloy, and chromium as hardener here. Okay, so here, if you try to add aluminum powder particle, sorry, chromium powder particle, which is a melting point of 1875 into aluminum molten metal, so it will not fuse it with aluminum matrix because its melting point is 1875 at 660 degree Celsius. It remains a solid. It will not fuse. It will just mix it with like its particle. It will mix. Okay, it will form a composite rather than alloy. In order to achieve a fusing with aluminum, what we'll do, first we are going to melt chromium. chromium will be melt by supplying a heat of 1875 degree and above. Chromium will be melt. Okay, in rich concentration, you will take more chromium metal and will melt that chromium into the melt of chromium. Once the chromium is taken into the molten state, then we will add the aluminum. As aluminum melting temperature is 660 degree, it will rapidly melt because it is exposed to 3 times its higher the melting point. So readily it will dissolve into the liquid chromium. Okay, then the chromium and aluminum will be fused together. Is it clear? This is how master alloy will be created. In master alloy, the percentage of chromium will be more. The master alloy is enriched with chromium percentage. The aluminum based master alloy, which contain the hardener element, that is chromium, in high concentration. Okay, now provide a convenient and economical way to add them to molten aluminum to achieve the desired final property. So once the master alloy is prepared, so when you are adding chromium as a alloying element, usually we add in 4 to 8%. In that range, we are going to add into the molten metal of aluminum for preparing a aluminum alloy. So while preparing a master alloy, we'll take 50% of the chromium and 50% of aluminum. We'll heat the chromium to its melting point, then we will add the aluminum. Then aluminum chromium will be fused together, form a chromium rich composition. So that will convert it into powder form. It will have more both chromium and aluminum. So that will be added to uh, molten metal of aluminum. It is at 660 degree. Okay. So when you add that, the aluminum present in chromium and aluminum combination of master alloy, it melt at 6 degree. It will fuse it with aluminum. That will enhance the mixing of chromium into the aluminum uh, molten metal. Okay, this is how we are going to add hardener into the aluminum alloy. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So next we move on to next concept. That is again, as I told you, these master alloy readily go into the solution at lower liquid aluminum temperature, thus minimizing dross formation and solubility of hydrogen. Okay, we'll discuss what is dross in next class or next stages. Dross is nothing but impurities, a solid impurities that will float on the surface of the molten aluminum. Okay, and that is called dross. The amount of aluminum and hardener used is calculated during the course of melting so as to bring the final aluminum casting to desired specification. Okay, so this is how we will add hardener into the aluminum casting. Next is drossing. Okay, so as I told you, a dross is a mass of solid impurities floating on the surface of low melting point metal such as aluminum, tin, lead, tin, etc. Okay, tin, zinc, etc. Okay, dross is a mass of solid impurities floating on the surface of low melting point metal. Okay, such as aluminum, tin, lead, zinc, etc. as a result of oxidation of the molten metal. Okay, when the atmospheric air react with the molten metal, so oxide layer will be formed that will be floating on the top of the liquid surface. That solid impurities is referred as a dross. With reference to aluminum casting, the term drawing is specially used to denote the formation of aluminum oxide. When aluminum react with oxygen, aluminum oxide will be formed, okay, that collect on the surface of the molten aluminum metal when coming in contact with the air. Okay, draws can be minimized when melting is made faster. Okay, when the melting is made faster means you will allow less time for reaction to take place and less time for oxide layer to form, or by protecting the molten metal coming in contact with the product of combustion or atmospheric air. On top of the molten metal, if you add flux or if you provide a inert gas atmosphere, okay, that will not allow atmospheric air to react with molten metal, forming a oxide layer. Okay, you can avoid dross formation by you can minimizing dross by making melting faster, and you can avoid dross formation by protecting the molten metal with a inert gas atmosphere. Okay, so that we can protect molten metal coming in contact with the product of combustion or atmospheric air, so that you can eliminate dross formation. As I told you, in aluminum, dross formation is nothing but aluminum is react with air, forming aluminum oxide. That aluminum oxide is a mixture of aluminum and aluminum oxide. It will be mixture. Okay, so you cannot throw it as a waste. Okay, however, even with its formation, the dross product need not to be considered as waste material. Instead, can be recycled either mechanically or chemically, and you can reuse that. Okay, so the aluminum oxide floating on the surface can be taken and it can be mechanically treated or chemically treated in order to extract pure aluminum or aluminum alloy in the dross, and oxide can be again it will melt. Again, pure aluminum settle because of the difference of density. Okay, so pure aluminum will be separated with, from oxide. Okay, so this is about drossing or dross formation. In aluminum casting, aluminum oxide form due to aluminum react with air. So that has to be removed. Okay, so removed in the sense it is not thrown as a waste. We can recycle it. You can extract aluminum present in the aluminum oxide, and we can reuse it. Okay, by treating chemically or mechanically. So dross can be minimized, as I told you, by making melting faster, or by even protecting the molten metal from exposure to the atmospheric air, by providing a inert gas atmosphere above the molten metal. You can minimize the, or you can eliminate the dross formation. Even it is formed, you cannot consider it as a waste. We have to use recycling mechanism, either mechanically or chemically. You have to recycle that, so that you can separate aluminum from oxide, so it can be reused for other casting. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So as I told you, oxide suppression and removal. So from aluminum oxide, you have to separate the oxide, and pure aluminum has to use further. Okay, drastic fluxes are designed for chemical means. So fluxes are used to remove the aluminum from aluminum oxide. The drastic fluxes are designed for chemical means to promote suppression of aluminum oxide. Okay, aluminum oxide refers to Al2O3. Dross layer that forms on the surface of the melt from the molten metal, either a solid or chemical active gaseous fluxes, okay, containing chlorine, fluorine, chloride, or fluoride are used for the purpose. Okay, so what we will do, we will add the fluxes, okay, containing chlorine, fluorine, chloride, or fluoride are used for the purpose. The drossing flux react with aluminum oxide, whatever the dross form, aluminum oxide form, the flux react with aluminum oxide in dross layer by de-wetting of the oxide melt interface to provide effective suppression of the oxide and other included matter, thereby helping in recovering aluminum metal. Okay, these fluxes will react with aluminum oxide and forming the dross layer will be de-wetting of the oxide melt interface to provide a effective suppression of oxide and other included matter, thereby helping in recovering aluminum metal. So this is chemical way of suppression. So you will use fluxes like chlorine, fluorine, chloride or fluoride. So you will be added, okay, so that aluminum oxide will react with the fluxes, so aluminum will be separated. Okay, so and oxide layer will float on the surface. The mechanical way of uh, removal of oxide is, so you will take hot dross, okay, whatever when dross is floating on the surface of the molten metal, we take that lump of the dross and you place it in the press. Okay, that press means we'll apply a pressure from the top, so that will squeeze and separate into aluminum metal rich particle and aluminum oxide rich particle based on the density. It will separate into aluminum rich particle and aluminum oxide rich particle. Okay, again if you melt that, metal rich particle are then melted in a furnace. Metal rich particle will then melted in a furnace to remove the remaining oxide particle. Once you melt the metal rich particle, because of the density difference, pure aluminum will be settled at the bottom, the oxide will be float on the surface. So thereby you can minimize the waste of material in the form of dross by extracting aluminum and by separating with oxide. So two way you can use, by chemical method or mechanical method. Chemical method is by mixing with flux, aluminum oxide will react with flux, and the separation of aluminum and oxide will take place. Mechanical way is, whatever the solid impurities floating on the surface of the metal will be taken, the solid impurity lump will be taken and it is keep under the mechanical or hydraulic press. So then it will squeeze. Once it squeezes, it separate the aluminum metal rich particle and aluminum oxide rich particle based on the density. Then aluminum metal rich particle is further melted in a furnace to remove the remaining oxide particle that will float and can be removed. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, mechanical, can you say again, sir?
Mechanical.
Mechanical
Also
process.
explain, in mechanical process, so whatever the waste impurities that is floating on the surface, okay, that will be taken and it is placed in the press, mechanical or hydraulic press. Once you are melting the aluminum alloy, the impurities are floating, that will be taken and keep it on under the press. When you apply the pressure, that squeeze and separate the aluminum metal rich particle and aluminum oxide rich particle. Okay, the aluminum rich particle will be taken, the aluminum oxide rich particle is thrown as a waste. Aluminum metal rich particle is taken and again remelt it. Once you remelt aluminum metal rich particle, due to density difference, oxide will be float on the top and pure particle will be on the bottom. Thereby you can separate aluminum and oxide. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the